Hi, it's Sam. In this video, we're going to continue looking at making UIs in Max MSP and Max for Live. We're going to take a look at bpatchers and using hover and the live.colors objects to create dynamic UIs that can change colors a little bit. You may have noticed that my channel has had a bit of an explosion of Max for Live devices and tutorials. I just released a handful of devices, some of which I've been working on for years now. And if you haven't already, it would mean a lot if you would check them out. I've got some both free and commercial devices that I think you'll enjoy using and you will find helpful. So thank you in advance for your support, and thank you to those of you who have already taken a look at them. So let's get into our tutorial for today. Let's start off by making our bpatcher, and if you haven't worked with a bpatcher before, this is essentially the same as an abstraction, which is just a saved patcher that you can reuse, and the difference being that you can add UI elements and you'll be viewing the inside of the patch through the bpatcher, so that whatever you put into the bpatcher will be accessible from the main level of the patch. So this will make more sense once we actually get into using it. So I'm going to start off by opening a fresh patch, and this is not, I didn't create a Max for Live device on the sidebar here. You'll see there's nothing loaded up into Ableton. This is just a standalone patch. That's what we need to make to use as a bpatcher. So let's make sure that we start off by doing that. And let's start off by adding the main UI element for this tutorial will be a multi-slider object. And there's some changes I want to make to it in the inspector. I want to change the background color to LCD background. I'm going to be using dynamic colors so we can take advantage of the changes that those make when we change the live theme. Also for the slider color, let's change that to LCD text icon. I also want to add a slider spacing of 1. And then make sure to turn parameter mode enable on. This is a Max object, so we need to make sure that we turn that on. The live objects have that by default, but this does not. Also want to change the number of sliders to 5, and the slider style to bar, so it's a little easier to see what's going on. And from here, let's make sure we add this to presentation, and let's just add a 0. We're going to use this to reset the values if we were to change them. These go from -1 to 1, then hit 0, it'll send 0 to all of the bars, and it'll change the value for all of them. And let's just make a live.text and attach that, add it to presentation, and let's just make this say reset, and let's change the mode to button. So now we can reset it. And let's also go into the patcher inspector, make sure nothing's selected, and then hit the show patcher inspector button on top. Let's go down and say open in presentation, and I also like to turn on snap to pixel. I'll put it in presentation mode, and we're going to want to put the reset button in the top, very top corner. Let me check that here, 0, 0, and I'll put the multi-sliders right below that. And so now when we open the bpatcher in our Max device, I want to make sure that everything's kind of in the corner so that the patcher will look correct. So now we can make sure that we save this. Now when you save your bpatcher, you want to put it in the search path that Max uses to find patchers. Otherwise, it won't be able to find it when you put in the name of the patcher, and you'll have to manually add it. I believe you can set this up by going to Max's preferences and going to the files and folder section. I'll put more information about that in the description. I'll have to look up exactly how that is set up. Okay, so now that this is set up, let's just save it now. I'm gonna put this in my my library. Let's see, go to my Max library, and I'll just call this bpatcher sliders. And let me just save this name or copy that name so I can retrieve it. Now we can just close this for now, and we can open up any kind of Max device. Let me say, I don't know, a Max MIDI effect, and open this up. And now we can, we don't need any of these. We can add a bpatcher, and then the name of the bpatcher sliders, and then hit enter. And there we go, we have our bpatcher. And I'll say add to presentation, and I'll do the same thing here. I'll say, let's see, go to the inspector, I'll say open in presentation, and snap to pixel, and I'll just put this up against the side here for now. And so now we already have the workings of our, whoops, I forgot to actually put this in presentation first. Now we have the beginning of our patch. Let me save this as well so that we can take a look at it. I'll just call this bpatcher UI. And now I can close it and we can take a look at it. So one of the reasons I wanted to get to this point is so I could show you that if I change these sliders, then I hit reset, it's working, that's all good. But if I now undo, what's happened? Well, reset is now the color that it should be when I press it, but that's not very useful for me. Now I have to do 2 steps to undo it, and this is just a little bit confusing looking. Now it's undone it, but I had to undo twice. So it's better, I think, that we go back to our bpatcher. I can right click on the bpatcher, go to Object, and hit Open Original. Now I can edit it again. I think we should go to the inspector and say that the parameter visibility is hidden. So now that won't happen anymore. It'll not put the reset button in our undo history. Now this means we can't automate this button or access it from MIDI controller, so that is a downside. But you kind of need to put that against the fact that it will add to the undo history and kind of create some strange things that happen when you try to undo. So this might depend if you have a very essential function for something that's a momentary object like the reset button, then maybe there's some kind of consideration you have to make. But for all of my devices, for usually momentary buttons like this, I always have them hidden because it just creates issues. So that's that. Let's move on now. So we are going to use, as I said, the hover object and the live.colors object to make a dynamic UI here with the colors. And what hover does is it looks at what's under your mouse and it'll send out the name of whatever that object is when it's over it, and then it can also send out the name when it leaves that, and we're going to be using that to set the colors. What I want to do is when we're hovering over the sliders, I want it to be this, the color it is now, and then when it leaves it, I want it to be a little bit duller so that we have this nice interaction with the mouse. So to do that, we're going to need to start off by using some selects to select the name of the multi-sliders. But what should the name of the multi-sliders be, especially if we want to reuse this bpatcher? Maybe we want to make a couple of these bpatchers of the same ones in our code. And of course, the benefit of this is that we wouldn't have to write the code all over again. If we wanted to make any changes to it, we could just change one of them and then they're all updated. But that means that we have to make sure the names are different. So to do that, we can actually use a changeable argument for either abstractions or bpatchers, which is going to be using this syntax of #1 through #9. And these are going to correlate with the arguments that you give the bpatcher, which could be anything. It could be hello, it could be 1, 2, 25, a million. So those will just be replaced depending on where they correlate to in the argument with whatever you are making the argument. This will make more sense when we look at this when it's implemented. So let's start off by, we can set the name, which is going to be the scripting name, just from the inspector. But like I said, we want to change it depending on what argument we give it. So we can use load mess to send this #1, this changeable argument. And we're going to have to format the message actually, because the default behavior is that we have to have the changeable argument before any other message. So for example, if I wanted it to be #1 multi-sliders, if I typed this in to the inspector, this would work. I wouldn't have to do anything to set it up, and that's great. But what if I wanted to name this multi-sliders 1, or I guess #1? This wouldn't work. I would have to set it up a different way, which is what I'm going to show you now. But if you just want to put the changeable argument at the beginning, then you don't need to make any kind of special arrangements. You can just type it into the inspector. But we can change it dynamically by using varname. And the reason I know that, if we go into the inspector, we can click on show attribute names in the bottom, and then go to the scripting name, and you see that the attribute is varname. And so that's very handy. And so to format this, we're going to have to use the I need this to be an object, printf, and then we need this to be a symbol, which means it'll have quotation marks around it. So we're going to say sim out, and then we'll say sliders, and then we want there to be an integer afterwards. So the syntax is going to be %I for integer. And now this should work when we load up the patch. So we're going to get the argument. This will be replaced by whatever the first argument is, and it'll send it to our sprintf, which will then format it in the way that we'd like, as sliders 1 or 2 or whatever we make the argument. And then it will send that to the multi-sliders, then assigning the scripting name. So then we're also going to need to tell hover that it's looking for this name. So we're just going to send that to the select, so that when hover sends out that name, that select knows that it's found it, and we can send out what color we want it to be. And to set the color, again, we can go into the inspector, turn on the show attribute names, and we can see that slider color. We just need to say slider color, all lowercase, all one word. So I can just say prepend slider color. So when the object is under, when the object's under the mouse, we want to just send the regular old LCD text icon. So we can just say LCD text icon. Make sure you need to format it exactly like this with all the uppercase and spaces and all that. So that can go when we're under it, but when we're not under it, we want to change it a little bit. And to do that, we can use live.colors. How live.colors works is we send the name of the dynamic color that we want to know the values of, the RGBA, and then it'll send out the name that we gave it, followed by the values. So we're going to root out the LCD text icon, and then we'll get the resulting values. And I want to get rid of the alpha value. So I'm going to use ELSlice3 to grab the first 3 values, the RGB, and I'm going to replace the alpha value with, I'm going to add at the end 0.75, so it's a little bit dull. And then that's going to go in to, I'm going to use a zlreg to save this. And I want to put it into the hot inlet, because if I change the theme, then I'll get a bang out of the right outlet of live colors so that I can bang the LCD text icon when that happens. And I want to then update the color when that happens. So I want to make sure that it goes into the hot inlet. And I also want to make sure I use a live.thisDevice to send a bang to the LCD text icon message so that when it starts up, I can have it working immediately. And so I can't really test it right now without sending some values, because the slider's name is not going to work right now. If I try to send #1, it's going to give me an error because #1 is not an integer. So the object is confused about why I'm sending it that, but it will be an integer once we set it up correctly. So let's also make a live.comment so that we can check that the name is working correctly. I'm going to use the set message, add this presentation. So now I can just check that I'm getting the correct name. Okay. And you can see it actually updated in my main patch. It says slider 0 because I didn't give it any argument. So I think that's all I need to do for now. Let's test it using... Oh, it's actually working. That's wonderful. And I can get rid of the console because let's fix this. So I can go into the inspector of my bpatcher, and you see there's an arguments field here. Let's just change this to be 1. And now it's updated and it says sliders 1. Great. And it's still working, which is wonderful. And now we can see we got this nice interaction going where when we hover over the multi-sliders, they're going to be nice and bright. And then when we leave it, it's going to be this kind of dim color, which is really nice. And we can just pop this over here. And this is kind of the first part that I wanted to cover. Now, there's another thing I wanted to mention, which is that you can embed the bpatcher in the patch. It says that by default, actually, when you, it's going to be loaded from the file specified. So if you don't have this file on your computer, then you're not going to be able to use the device. So embedding the patch was useful for that reason. However, if you embed it, then you right-click on it to edit it. It'll say new patcher with contents of embedded patcher. Whereas before it said, when I unembed it, it'll say open the original. So you're actually editing a different version of this bpatcher, which maybe you want to do. Maybe you want to make some specific changes to this version that you've embedded, which is fine. But if you make a bunch of changes expecting those to be saved to the original that you want to then like reuse in a different patcher, then you're going to create a problem for yourself, which I'm pretty sure I've done before. So you have to be really careful if you've embedded it. You want to like kind of unembed it or go find the original file and make changes to that. Of course, save a backup first, and then kind of re-add it to your patch so that those changes get reflected. Okay, so there's a couple other things I wanted to show you. First is how you can send messages to a bpatcher. So to do this, we're going to have to do some scripting, which is pretty straightforward. I'm using this patcher, and I need to get out of presentation view first. Okay. So I'm going to create a little button, and this button is going to let us hide the bpatcher. So I'm just going to say hidden. And we're going to send the following message. So first, we are kind of saying that we're using scripting by saying script, and then we use the word sendbox. This is specific for bpatcher's sendbox. And then we need to tell it what object we're referring to. So we actually need to click on our bpatcher and give it a scripting name. And I'll just call this sliders 1. And I'll say sliders 1, and what I want to do to that is hide it. So I'll say hidden, and then I'll make my changeable argument $1 and hook this up. Now I should be able to hide and show it. So that's how you can send messages using scripting to a bpatcher. And the other thing I wanted to show you is how to make your device dynamically wider. So let's make a second version of this. Let me just copy it and let me change the argument to 2. And let's see. Let's move this over here. And let's make this kind of off screen. And then when we hit a button, the device will get larger and you'll be able to see the second set of sliders. Just want to make sure these are working. Okay. And so to do that, we're going to use actually the live.thisDevice, not just for sending out bangs, you can also send messages to it. And so we're going to send this a message. Let me just get another text. This will be the grow button. And we're going to switch between 0 and 1. And we're just going to send a simple message, which is setwidth. And that's not right. So let's see. I don't want that either. My apologies. Setwidth. So let me just say what the width is that we want to use. And let's see, how wide is this? This is, what is it, 161 pixels? So let's say like 162. And then let me just move this over. Then we can send another message to double the size, around 330. So I want to do like, I want to have like a little bit of wiggle room. So we'll say like 330. And from here, this should work. Let's go to our presentation and we can put our hidden and grow buttons in. And then I want to make sure that this sliders 2 is beyond, what did I set it as, 162? So I'll make it sort of like 163. Or maybe even 164, just to be extra careful. And now let's give this a try. We can hide it, show it, and then grow, and there we go. Great, so now we have some contractions going on. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to mention. Right now I can see that this shows up in the info view as multi-slider and multi-slider 1 in brackets, but we can actually make that a little bit nicer by going in. Oh, whoops, I want to say original. And we can go down to link to scripting name, turn that on, save. And this should be updated as well with that. And now, hopefully, that should be fixed. Yep, now it says sliders 1 and sliders 2. So that's really nice as well. Great. So we looked at how to use bpatchers, how to change the width of your device dynamically, how to send scripting messages to your bpatchers using hover and live.colors, parameter visibility with using these momentary UI objects. So hope you found this useful. I have a link in the description also to my GitHub, which has all my tutorial patches so far for you to download and take a look at. I've added comments to a lot of them, and if there's any changes, like slight mistakes that I might have had or little rearrangements, then you can find those there as well. So I hope you find that helpful. Let me know if you have any clarifications or anything else you want me to cover. Otherwise, until next time, class is dismissed.